We're live and recording. This is not Memorex. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I am Vicki Olson, and I am the moderator today for, I just went blank. I'm so sorry. Homebrewer to Head Brewer with Teresa Psuty and Sherrill. Teresa is the owner of Crooked Lane in Auburn, California, and Ellen is the head brewer. She makes all that good stuff. And so just a little bit of housekeeping here. If you have any tech problems, you know, everybody's been in a lot of these. Am I echoing? Okay. I sound like I'm echoing. It's okay. If you have any tech problems, one of the things that work really well is to just go out and come back in. And there is a green tech button right underneath Teresa right now. And you will be able to get some tricks and tips. So with that, I'd like to introduce Teresa. She has a video that she'd like to go through. And if you have any questions, I will be down in the background and I'll be monitoring the Ask a Question, which is right to the left of the chat session. Anytime, just ask questions. If you like a question that's there, hit the like, and then it helps the question to go up to the top. And without further ado, here is Teresa and Ellen.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm so grateful to be here today. I love that you guys invited us, and especially that we get to do this together. We're very, we're very passionate about what we do, and we're really happy to share that with you guys. So I have a presentation that I wanted to jump in and just show you guys a little bit about our brewery and kind of talk to you about where I came from and how I got here. So I'm gonna share this. And is that looking okay? Thumbs up. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, let me put it up on focus screen really quick.
Oh, great, thanks.
How's that? Does that work?
I think so, yeah. Is that, okay. I'll go and you guys just yell at me if it doesn't seem to be working. So I originally put this presentation together for a class at UC Davis of, they teach a really fun class. It's called Introduction to Beer. And when Charlie Bamforth taught this class, like if I could have been a student at UC Davis, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. It's just super fun. But I kind of shared with them what where I came from and where we're going to. And I love to make puns. So this is how I learned how to stop worrying and love craft beer. And so I imagine quite a few out there, or there at least is some number of folks out there that want to build a brewery. And this is frankly like my best advice on how we've done and how I would give you advice on how to do that. So here's who we are, why we are, how we did it, and where are we going to. So if you're not familiar with Crooked Lane, it's a big square building, originally built in the 90s and early 90s, and it was built as a movie theater. So you can kind of see that as you're walking in. It's like this grand entrance. And then what would have been the production space was originally like the duplex movie theater. We have a 15-barrel brew house with about 300 barrels of fermentation space. Our building is about 5,000 square feet. And then we have the whole building, I kind of misspoke there. And then the outside space, there's a front patio and a side patio, the beer garden area. That's about 3,000 square feet. Back when in 2019, I think we're about the top 10 production volume for Sacramento. We might have dropped to maybe 15th now. I'd have to really dig into the numbers, but we're a pretty big brewery for Sacramento area. And we have the biggest tap room that I think we still have, except for Drake's the Barn, which is a brewery tap room. A lot of people refer to us in jest as the Parthenon of beer. I think you can see the resemblance here. Anyway, those columns, a little pretentious, but we make it work. We have right now 2 full-time production people. Ellen is one. We actually just added a 3rd person, which is very exciting. They're going to be starting next week. And then we have about 6 front of the house staff at this point, 1 salesperson, and then our ownership is a group of 3. So we're a pretty small crew. We do a lot with the people we have. And I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I mean, obviously we're talking about being a home brewer and moving to a head brewer. This is my homebrew system. And the reason it's so dark is that when we started envisioning the brewery, I was not fully employed. I was staying at home with my 3 little kids. Right now I have 11, a 7, and a 9-year-old. Back when we started the brewery, the little one was, oh gosh, he's 7 now, but he would have been 2 when we opened the brewery. So when we started preparing for this, he was just a little baby. And so I used to get up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and start my homebrew batch and take it through to completion in the morning. And about that time, the kids are starting to wake up. So hence the need for a light there. Here we are. This is our kitchen. We're homebrew bottled some beers for competitions. What's that? Oh, sorry. So we're starting from nothing in our garage. But the reason that I wanted to talk about this is we always knew that we wanted to start a business, and it turned out the business was a brewery. And when we were preparing the business plan and trying to figure out all the stuff that we were going to do, I really had to go back and say, well, what are we going to do on the beer side? Like, how are we going to convince people to invest in us? How are we going to, develop our recipes? So that was the point that I really got into homebrewing. And I always approached it like it was my job. It was a very serious endeavor for me. Here we are. We got the name for the brewery actually because we live on Crooked Lane in Newcastle. We envisioned the brewery in 2013, started the business in 2014. We leased our building in 2015, but the planning did not reach completion until January of 2016. So the timeline here is really long. We have a building in a commercial area, but brewing isn't really a commercial use. It's a industrial use. So we had to go through a planning change on our building, which was a pretty lengthy process. We actually didn't begin construction until almost a year after we had leased the building. This will be fun for Ellen to see. I don't think she's seen these.
This is my first time seeing most of these photos, to be honest.
Yeah,
which is really fun.
It is. This is the production space. So our brewery started as a movie theater, but then it became a car dealership, and then it was a martial arts studio. And so on the left photo, like where you see the to the left of where the hole is for the roll-up door, that used to be an octagon. When we first came in, that was kind of like the martial arts or the MMA fighting area. And the floor wasn't really thick enough to support tanks. So what we did is we ripped up the entire floor, and then we laid these pipes for our sewer, but also for tank connections. So they actually go underneath the floor. And Ellen can attest, we have the greatest slope on the floor of any brewery anywhere. It's a very pronounced slope. You might be able to see it in a couple photos.
I love it. It's the
a technical standpoint, like we ripped the whole building apart in the back and we started anew. And we actually, this beam up here had to be put in because of all the demolition we did. We needed to put a support beam in. And meanwhile, I'm kind of backing up a little bit. So this is at New Helvetia. I learned how to homebrew as a purpose-driven thing for the brewery. I love beer, and I was excited to be able to do it, but it never occurred to me to just start homebrewing. So when I started homebrewing, I didn't approach it like a normal homebrewer. I was like, this is my job. This is very, very important for me to do. And so I started homebrewing for that. It happened that in 2015, the what am I trying to say? The Craft Beer Summit started. And what I did is I got my little polo shirt and I put my little Crooked Lane Brewing on it. And I went to every talk that I could, and I met every single person I could. And I just tried to make friends with as many people as I could. And I met the guys from New Helvetia, and I said, hey, I want to open this brewery, but I don't know too much about commercial brewing. Do you mind if I come and just watch you brew? And so that's what I did. I did like 5 or 6 days at different breweries around the area. Even took a trip to what used to be Tap It. They are now, they're going by a different name now.
Is it Southern Coast Brewing?
They're in San Luis Obispo, I believe.
Yeah.
Not the SR71, but the other one.
So I did.
Oh, you don't have
The brew day I did at New Helvetia was just so helpful to me to get to meet those guys, get to see what they do. And like I said, I just kept doing that.
Okay, that's good.
I also did an online course with Sherrill Institute along with my husband. I found that course to be really geared toward people who are going to work in big breweries. But I got what I could get out of it regardless. I also went to UC Davis and got to learn. I went to the week-long intensive brewing course. And at the time I went, fortunately, I got to learn from Charlie Bamforth and Michael Lewis, which neither are teaching nowadays, but really, really some great people to meet and make contacts with. And another fortunate thing I had was our brewery manufacturer is based in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're called American Beer Equipment, or ABE, as in Abe Lincoln. I guess that's their little brewery pun. But these guys are Blue Blood Brewing Company. They're based out of Lincoln, and they have a close relationship with Abe. It so happened they were getting a brewery that was really similar to ours installed just the week before I came. And so I got to work with them on their brand new brewery, and they goofed up so many things, and it was amazing. I got to learn a ton from them. It so happens this brewery is actually built over a cave. It's called Robbers Cave, and it's a sandstone cave that just is super expansive. It goes and goes and goes. I got to go back there one day and see if they're starting to open this to the public, but their plan was to do some barrel aging down there. It just seems like an amazing facility. This is our brew house, sitting and waiting for us to be able to install it. Like I said, our situation was pretty long from getting the building to be able to actually build the building. So, but then everything happened really fast. So here's a shot of my family. Ellen can see my kids are super little. The brewery coming in. This must be, it's the hot liquor tank coming in. we got to set it up all by ourselves because, you know, it's actually totally unaffordable to have somebody else do it for you. And here is our brew house set in our two 30-barrel tanks that are kind of our showcase tanks by our big windows. And after we opened, about 2 weeks later, we actually put in 2 more 30-barrel tanks. We started off with 2 30 barrels, 3 15 barrels, and we just about ran out of beer after the first weekend. So we put these 2 tanks in right away. After that, we've put in now 2 45-barrel tanks and a canning line. And this, I just wanted to put here because I'm really proud of this. This is, we just opened in August 31st of 2016. And one of our first beers, it was okay, but it was like an English style beer, but it had a really strong phenolic character and it just didn't taste quite right. So we decided to dump the beer, but instead of dumping the beer, we put it in a dunk tank. And we had people go in the dunk tank and people bought tickets and we donated the money for charity.
Also, I told this to Teresa. This is actually how I first heard of Crooked Lane. I heard about this dunk tank event, and I was like, "Well, that's fun. Like, I'm glad they're dumping a bad beer. Right on."
I was a bit traumatized at the time because I'm like, okay, are we gonna we're gonna let everybody in the brewing industry know that we made a bad beer, but I'm really proud of this because every time we've dumped a beer, this is not the first beer we dumped. It's not the last, you know. Every time we do this, I'm actually really proud to do it because I think it's so important. Like so many new breweries, especially, they will make a bad beer and they go ahead and serve it. And then people come in and they experience that brewery for the first time and they're like, wait a minute, what is wrong with this beer? Like these 3 beers are okay, but this one's terrible. And it's such a bad impression. And I think it's, you know, in retrospect, I'm really happy we did what we did. I don't know that I'd do another dunk tank of beer with a bad beer, but it was kind of awesome at the time. Let's see. So after all that, you know, honestly, it's really not about the beer. You know, having good beer is important, but it's really about community. It's about connecting with your customer. It's about the experience that you present people when they come in. It's about being unique, and we take that pretty seriously. It's about all the entertainment that you can have. And, you know, obviously that's changed a lot in the past year, but we might get back to some form of entertainment, hopefully. And quality and consistency are something that we take really seriously. And of course, you have to have good beer. I don't think any brewery that is making mediocre or not so great beer is going to last on the long term. And just to call out a couple of events that we have done and we'll do again. Actually, we have our first comedy night scheduled for June, which is pretty exciting. We do comedy here. We host bands. We do trivia. We do a big Oktoberfest celebration because our brewery focuses a lot on German beer styles. And we also work hard to connect with our fellow breweries. So we love to do collaborations. We've done a ton over the years, and it's always something where we get a lot out of working with somebody, with breweries, new breweries, old breweries, you know, big or small, we're up for it. We just did a brewery collaboration with Log Off Brewing Company in Rancho Cordova, and then we're scheduled to do another one next month at Hop Dogma out of Santa Cruz. Or I'm sorry, Half Moon Bay. This was a giant collaboration, which was really fun. A couple years ago for SAC Beer Week, we did this beer called the High Road. And it was celebrating the 10th year anniversary of the SAC Brewers Guild. And we basically had all the breweries come to us and just do a brew day. So it's not like we could all like actually brew the batch of beer, but it was really fun to all get together that day. All right, and I'm gonna actually stop this for now, and I'm gonna take a look at the questions. I don't see anything to talk about right now or that we need to answer right now. So I'll go ahead and throw it over to Ellen. She's going to talk a little more about her experience in recipe development.
Hi, my name's Ellen Sherrill. I'm the head brewer at Crooked Lane. I've been with Crooked Lane about a year now. I was recruited a couple months after COVID kind of put us all indoors, except for those of us that work in brewing production and everything. I was working at a larger brewery in the Sacramento region. So I guess that's where I am now, going all the way back to the beginning. My home brewing background is I started in a completely different place than Teresa. I'd been a beer nut since I was probably 23 years old. I'd gotten really into like, tasting beers and writing notes and reading up on process. But I just like, it took me a while to it really just sort of round up the equipment and like, get my process to actually like start making beer. But I like had plans to make beer and also to be a beer judge for a long time before I did either of those. But when I started making it, like it was just for fun. It was, a hobby, something I did on my weekends. I liked, you know, checking on my fermentations, and I was doing other weird fermentation projects. I was making kombucha and sauerkraut and kimchi and kefir and all of these things were a lot of fun. But I had no plans to go professional with any of this. But I was doing that for a few years while I was in another career, and eventually it came time for me to leave that career, and I'm in like my third or fourth career by now. I I just I don't know, like why stay stuck in something you're not enjoying anymore. So I've never had any qualms about moving along. But so I thought, well, I could go back to what I was doing the career before, which was fine, but I just wasn't as passionate about it anymore. But it occurred to me I could do whatever, you know. I mean, obviously there are limitations at, you know, closing in on age 40 with, no engineering background. You can't go off and become an astronaut, but like there's so much that you can do, if you just put your mind to it. And so the thing that I was most excited about outside of what I was doing for work really was beer and brewing. And the industry had been booming for a few years, and I just thought that I could find work. And so I saw that I had two choices. I could either pay to go to brewing school, which I'm sure I could have figured it out, but I was kind of poor. So like that wasn't necessarily going to be easy. Or, I mean, there are so many people, that have been that have been professional brewers for years and years and years that started washing kegs. And so I figured, why not start washing kegs and scrubbing floors and see if I can make this work. So I actually moved to the Sacramento area because there's a higher concentration of breweries here than where I was living at the time. And I got myself into a BJCP, Beer Judge Certification Study Program. And I actually scored my first brewing job when I was in the program, but I hadn't even taken the tasting exam yet, if memory serves. They just, I think, saw that as like an indicator that I really cared about this, that I was like willing to go through that program, and like I'd done, a number of other things to kind of, show that I really cared to, get in and get my hands dirty and do this. And so that was helpful, passed my tasting exam. became a certified beer judge, I was able to meet a lot of people doing beer judging, and so that was really helpful. But in the meantime, I did my bright tank cleaning and, just, random tasks around the brewery. I was brewing some, worked a taproom shift here and there. It's a small brewery where everyone does everything. So, it was a good place to start. Eventually, I got myself an assistant brewer job at a larger brewery, and kind of I stayed with that company for long enough to kind of make my way up to the food chain a little bit. But when Teresa called me with an offer for, a head brewer job, I couldn't very well say no. And as I mentioned earlier, like I'd known about Crooked Lane for a few years, and tried and liked their beers, and sort of was cognizant of like the sort of beer directions that the company was pursuing, and like what the like brand image was. And these are the kind of beers that I'm excited about. So like, I love that Crooked Lane is excited for me to make a lager, because that's like what I want to be doing. But anyway, I just, starting with home brewing, it was a really different mindset. But because, it was nothing like approaching it like a job the way that Teresa did. But I just, when I'm psyched about something, I just voraciously consume information. And so I was just reading, and I was listening to podcasts and just kind of digging in. I continue to do the same thing as a professional brewer, which again has really helped me out. But I started dabbling, and and at the time, I was brewing like 1 gallon batches on my stove with like a stock pot. So that was my home brewing system. It was super janky. I think you're going to hear this from Kat Weiss later. We both were poor and had really crappy brewing setups, but we were having a good time with it. So yeah, that's my background. And I guess I would say that it is my observation that it's harder to get into the brewing world these days if you have a homebrew background, and just like start with washing kegs and whatnot. I think that the labor pool is a little bit more saturated with people who have brewing degrees and stuff. But if you want to do it, you can find a way. I did, and I just believe that I could. And I don't really, I was telling someone a couple of weeks ago, that sounds arrogant, but I don't believe that I'm any more special than anyone watching this talk. And you just gotta want it. Teresa, anything else I should say? Or
Yeah, well, I think anyone who knows us and knows you, like, you're such a perfect fit for our brewery. And it just, I think it's the truth with women in a lot of industries is, we just have to go in there like we own the place and that we know everything. And if you don't know everything, you find it out on the back end. It's, my first career was in biotechnology, and I worked for a company that, as a service engineer, and it was a very male-dominated profession. So when I went to see a new customer, especially somebody in like Helena, Montana, it was challenging. I had to walk in there like I knew exactly what I was doing. I would never let on that I didn't. And then eventually I'd figure it out. But it's just like you have to claim your space, and you have to have your power. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but I've realized now that, like, looking at people holistically, like, I've never really looked for people who were UC Davis graduates. Like, that's not really important to where I've built our staff from. But I do realize now that I didn't realize at first that I actually want people who have really solid brewery experience, because it makes a huge difference with what they know. And how quickly they can come up to speed. And I think, for us, Ellen's been amazing at leading us. She's kind of my boss at this point in the brewery as far as beer stuff goes. That's true. I mean, I can't say no.
I love working at Crooked Lane. So I also think that it worked out really, really well. And as far as, who to hire and someone having like a brewing background, it's not like, they have to know everything. But one thing that I found, like as a supervisor, is that it's very, very hard when someone does not know commercial brewing terminology. And so, like, I just thought of this right now, but like that's one thing for anyone wanting to make their way in the commercial brew space. If you were to memorize the terms for like what all these doohickeys we're using are, I mean, that could really impress someone. And, I've supervised people who did and didn't know what all these things are called. And it's just like, it's really, really hard to explain to someone like how to do something if they don't know what half the words you're using are. So there's that. And there's just like disposition. You do need a certain disposition to, be an effective commercial brewer and successfully work in production. And, I don't think it takes that long to figure out, like either for the person or for the people they're working with. But, you got to like hard work and, just be okay with being uncomfortable for a little while sometimes.
Right. It's just has to be a little bit of a glutton for punishment.
You kind of do, but I just find it so incredibly rewarding. And, I know that the people I'm working with do too, that it's super worth it.
For sure. All right. Are you ready to hand it back to me?
Yeah. Unless there's anything else you can think of that I need to say, but you can always think of something later on.
Jump in whenever you have something that you're thinking of. Okay, there we go. I was just gonna quickly go through a few more things here. Can you see that, Ellen?
Yes, it's all fun, right?
It's all fun, right? Yes. Well,
we were just saying.
As we were just saying, it's all shits and giggles, as they say.
Just go to work, and I think, well, there are those people who I think they think that what you do is you go to work and then you like sip beer all day long, and it's very fun.
Yes, and definitely whenever they visit, you can always pop out to the tap room because you're not busy. You're just hanging out at your brewery, right?
Right.
I probably perpetuate that myth because I do that a lot. When people pop in, I'm just like, hey, what's happening? But, like we're saying, I'm not in charge of very much beer wise at this point. So, but I, and throw questions in the chat box. I am an open book when it comes to running a brewery. We're really almost up to our 5-year anniversary. It's been quite a ride. It's been an amazing time. I still love the heck out of it, but it's been a huge learning experience. And it took some things like a little while to figure out. And I'd love to just give anyone a nugget of knowledge that would save them a little bit of time and trouble. But just to think about a brewery from a business standpoint, it's definitely yes, there will definitely be a public celebration. We're going to have a huge celebration for year 5. We're going to do all kinds of collaboration beers and big party. A brewery it's a business, and it's a pretty cash intensive business. It's one that, you can go up or down hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but like up to $100,000 for us on a monthly basis, from ingredient purchases, from rent, from, all the things we need to buy versus when we're getting that money back in. And we're not that huge of a brewery. So it's really something to think about. You have to have a big cash reserve in order to make a brewery work without a lot of stress and a lot of like trying to order just-in-time ingredients and just-in-time labels and cans and all that stuff. It will drive you crazy if you don't have a pretty big cash reserve. This is, you guys are probably familiar with the like the triangle of cheap, fast, and good. Well, in breweries, it's tank space, kegs, and cold storage.
This is my life. This triangle right here. It really is.
It's just you have to figure this out all the time, and it's the limiting factor. Like, is your limiting factor your kegs, your tank space, or cold storage? We have expanded our tank space. Now we're running up again against our limitations on tank space. Cold storage, where we have a cold storage space in panels ready to install, but we've just got to get that thing installed. It's so challenging. Like I said, the large cash reserve. And everyone gets 30-day terms. So, you know, when you ship beer to a customer, they have 30 days to pay, and that's if they pay on time. So I saw some comments about distributors in the chat, and I think it's important to note that most distributors pay on time. And that's one thing that's really important for breweries. Like, can you just think about when COVID hit? We had shipped a ton of beer the end of February, beginning of March, and then all of a sudden everything is closed. Well, we had shipped all that beer and people weren't on the hook to pay until, you know, the end of the month. Well, all of a sudden everywhere is closed. So it was quite a shock to the system. Like, just because you have that monetary thing, the 30-day terms with your retailers, that means that from the time when you buy your ingredients to when you sell your product and you actually collect the money for it is pretty long. It's just something to think about. Our production volume, and I know probably everyone here is familiar with what a barrel is. It's 31 gallons. We started with about 1,000 barrels our first year. We got up to about 2,500 in 2019. 2020, we planned on 3,500 to 4,000 barrels. Well, we actually did really well, and we didn't do less than we had in 2019, but we planned for 3,500 barrels. So that means that all our hop contracts were for a huge amount of growth. All our planning was built around this, and we had to do a big adjustment when we realized that wasn't going to happen. This year, hopefully, we will hit that 3,500 barrel mark. I think at this point, we've realized we really need to expand our tank space in order to really hit that easily, just based on our production and quality standards that we're working on right now. So in 2019, we had reached profitability. Not huge profitability, but we were profitable. We had grown in distribution. We have some great staff members that we've had from the beginning. And we won Brew of the Year. Some of you guys might know this, but there's a California Craft Beer Cup was a new competition in 2019, and we were able to win the most medals in the competition. So we won Brew of the Year. Our goals for 2020, I'm going to skip over this because most of it, we didn't do. I'm not going to worry about that. In 2020, obviously, we had to make some huge changes. But on a positive note, I think we figured out a much leaner way to run the business, and we have done a really good job at doing more with less. And that's such a horrible term. I whenever I see that, I always think, like, do more with less, really. But, and it's not so much less, it's like we have a much more knowledgeable staff nowadays, especially in the production space. They're, you know, Ellen and Dano, right now, they literally produce as much beer as 4 people did before. So
They're very efficient. Yeah,
super efficient.
she's right. We just, we figured out how to like maximize like what happens in every hour of our day and just like do the most with it.
And sometimes you think of brewery people as being kind of like, yeah, you know, this is a fun job. This is a job I want to do for fun. I'm not going to work really hard. They're not like that at all. And I think that's the really important thing to try to find those people who are ready to like totally bust their butt. You know, it's not about having beers on lunch and then just kicking back for the afternoon and maybe you get your work done, maybe you don't. It's like, no, you have a schedule and you need to keep your schedule so that you can make as much beer as you can so we can increase our production and then we can hire somebody else. And that's I feel like that change that has come over us in the last year. And we really, I mean, I think that's our future. You know, we need to run this place like we're trying to do the best we can every day, not just show up, not just, you know, be here to have fun. Because I think there's more fun to be had when we're doing a better job running the business. Right now, actually, it's funny. I just was telling someone we're not canning 2 beers, but we started canning all of our beer. Our production once upon a time before COVID used to be 75% in-house and 25% out in the world. Nowadays, it's 25% in-house, which is growing. And then mostly distribution. We are starting to increase our taproom business, but we haven't really cut down our distribution business. So that means the whole brewery just needs to grow to keep up. But we installed a depalletizer in the brewery to be able to can beer without some poor soul loading cans for 8 hours at a time. So that's part of the efficiency we built. We have just tried to cut out some of the silly stuff we were doing before. You know, just we don't have live music every single week because we realized that live music has implications as far as the licensing agencies that we have to pay. And every time you pay money out of pocket, it's not like you have to sell that much beer. You have to sell 2 or 3 times that much beer to make up that cost. So we're trying to be really smart about the events we do have and make sure that, you know, we're covered with our licensing. We're not paying a ton of money out to the talent and then, you know, having to make it up double on the beer. Having events that are community focused, but not necessarily like hugely expensive to do. One of the things that we're doing in about 3 weeks is we're having a vendor fair at the brewery. So we actually have invited vendors to do a pop-up sale for their whatever it is, whether it's like this one's a little more focused on outdoors sort of stuff. So we have bike racks and we have pool trail maps. They do like bandanas that have maps of our Auburn trails, and we have outdoor clothing company. We have, you know, all this stuff, and we're inviting them as a fun event at the brewery. People around the area get to come and enjoy these vendors and then hopefully buy beer. But it's much more community focused than it is like, okay, like come and pay us for whatever, you know, or just buy beer. It's like, it's something fun to do. And then maybe you want to have a beer. E-commerce is a big thing that we really leaned into like November, December of last year. We totally rebuilt our website, built on a e-commerce platform, and that's been really important for us, especially during those times where we couldn't connect with our customers. We did a lot of beer shipments. We did a lot of beer deliveries. And then our distribution, we're looking at, well, we started working with one local distributor, and that's something that we'll be looking into. We'll possibly be starting with another distributor before the end of the year, depending on expansion. Okay, so I don't know if anyone out there wants to get a job in the brewing industry after my shining recommendations. Honestly, right now I am talking to other brewery owners and they're having a horrible time recruiting people. So now is a really wonderful time to get into it.
Yes, and everybody's advertising for production jobs.
Exactly. Tons of production, and you don't have to start knowing every single thing. We're looking for people who have experience right now, but like to start out caking out beer and moving, doing logistics and moving ingredients around and that kind of thing. It's really fun, and it doesn't take a lot to get going with that. Beards and Sack, Brewbound, I think are the most popular pages to find out about jobs locally. And also, if you start in the tap room and you want to jump into the production space, that's a really great way too. We have one girl who runs our canning line. She is also working in production. So she cans beer, she packages beer, and she works in the tap room. And also homebrew, of course. Like you're always welcome at your local homebrew club. There's tons of women that homebrew now. If you're a woman, and don't be afraid to just go to a meeting and start finding out about it. And what else? I didn't talk too much about it, but I think if I have a mission in life, it's to become a person that helps welcome women under the tent that is craft beer. So one of the things I like to do is, get out there and tell our story and be present and help girls know that this is fine for them. But part of my studying as a home brewer is I listen to tons of Brewing Network podcasts. I don't know if you guys listen to Brewing Network, but it has a ton of information about how to homebrew, beer styles. There's Brew Strong and Brewing with Style are both really good podcasts for technical information about brewing. And so I listen to all that stuff forever, trying to learn how to homebrew, and I found it really, really helpful to me. So when I got to know some of the guys that work at the Brewing Network, I really approached them and said, hey, I've noticed you have all these great podcasts and I listen, but you guys sound like a bunch of misogynistic assholes because there's no women that know about beer on your podcast. I think you should fix that. So for the last couple of years, they invited me on, and I've become a co-host on the Brewing Network on the Session podcast. And honestly, I think, well, it's been great for me, and it's been great for the brewery. Let's be honest, I do it because I want to promote Crooked Lane, and I think it's important. But I also really enjoy it because I feel that it's important that women are in all the spaces of craft beer, that it's not a guy's thing anymore. And so we need to represent. So, all right. So
should we answer some questions?
Yes, please.
I was just kind of looking here, and the most upvoted what was the biggest knowledge gap for your moving from homebrewing to working in your brewery? And I would briefly just say for moving from being a home brewer to working in a commercial brewery was nomenclature, which I talked about earlier. Just learning what all the stuff is called, it's a big barrier when you don't know what all the stuff is called, because the equipment you use in a home brewing setup, I mean, obviously you've got maybe your mash tun and your kettle, but a lot of the other things affiliated with commercial brewing systems and tanks and pumps and you know, whatever. It's different. So I think that once I got over that stuff, like a lot of the rest of it was just getting very detailed. So
the one thing that I learned from commercial brewers that I worked with prior to opening the brewery is two things. One is hop utilization. So most commercial beer systems are different than homebrew in that you can't cool it down super fast. Like for our system, we have a separate whirlpool from the boil kettle. So we send the beer or the wort over to the whirlpool, but it's hot. And we whirlpool our hops, but we can't cool it down right away. We have to knock it out through the heat exchanger, and it takes 45 minutes to an hour and 20. And so in your recipes, you have to plan for extra hop utilization. So if you use Beersmith, I set my number at 120, I think, for hop utilization. The other thing is that for recipes, homebrew recipe, my efficiency is like 53% or something, but it's like 83% or higher on our system now. So what'll happen is the base malt will extract a lot more, but the specialty malts will have a little bit smaller contribution. So you almost have to up your specialty malts against your, like if you're translating a recipe directly from homebrew to commercial brewing, it has to have a little less base malt and a little more specialty ingredients. But, honestly, nowadays in craft beer, most recipes are they're so pale. Like we have specialty ingredients, but they're pretty low in SRM, with the exception of like stuff that's supposed to be malty.
I have two that are specifically aimed at me, so let me briefly answer those. One of them is, what was my happy beer accident? Which, Melissa, you're going to have to explain that. Maybe type that into the chat or I'm sure I have a lot of happy beer accidents. And then the other one is, what is my favorite style of beer to create? And I don't know if that means write a recipe or do the brew day, but I'll just tell you that for the brew day, like, I'd be lying if I said I was lazy, but I love me an easy brew day. And so, making like, a Hellas or, our Kolsch or just like a session IPA, something that's easy to grain out and like you don't have to be adding hops every 5 minutes and, cooling the whirlpool down, just like anything that's like simple and straightforward. It's just a pleasant day. And then as for I guess, what styles I like writing recipes for, it's just especially styles that are nuanced. I enjoy the challenge of trying to get that right, but I also like writing recipes for things that are big and bold. Anything I'm excited about drinking, I can probably get really psyched up when I'm writing the recipe because I'm picturing like how I can get this great beer that I have like, on the mind's eye of my palate going on. So yeah, go ahead and check out what you can answer, Teresa. I don't think I can answer.
Oh, there's one. Leah asked if some breweries out here shifted to sanitizer production, and I can tell you we didn't even consider it. I think that the distilleries did. I believe that Heretic did.
I think Heretic did, but they have like distilling. They have their distilling license, so they're making, I think, clear spirits already. And so they didn't have to like add infrastructure. I think that maybe one of the distilleries near us, like in Auburn or another nearby town, may have done a little bit of that. but I don't know who they were, like what it was that they were distilling, whether it was even like
Yeah.
beer wort or beer that they were distilling down.
Well, and it's hard too, because I understand after talking to some distillers, like sometimes when you use that, like say you have out of code beer and you want to distill that, it's not so simple because it ends up like the hop content or the content of the wort or the beer doesn't really match up that well with your still, so it can gum up your still. It's like definitely a challenging choice, and I think all of us, and Ellen I'm sure can agree, like when we started hearing that some of the breweries that are and distilleries that started getting like taxed or pinged for making hand sanitizer, it's like that was an easy thing for them to do. So I hope, I didn't follow that super closely, but I hope it all got sorted out.
I think that the closest that I got to hand sanitizer was at my last brewery. We had sent in some beers for it was I'm blanking out. It's like the World Beer Cup, I want to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah.
we sent in several beers for the World Beer Cup, and I mean 5 or 10, like it was a sort of large amount, and then COVID hit, and that judging was not that long after, and at that point, like it was like quarantine, and
Yeah.
like no events were happening whatsoever, and they hadn't figured out how to do like online judging at all at that point. Everything was just canceled, and so they sent all of the beer that I had made for that got sent off to the distillery, and all of the World Beer Cup entries got turned into hand sanitizer. I was like, at least my beer did something. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. It was such a crazy time. It's like a few times in my life I don't remember too much about what happened. I feel like April was that way because the stress was so high, and I just, I just looked around me and I was like, oh my God, we're going to lose all of this. Like we're so screwed. And it was so stressful that I think I just like, but then after a while it's like, oh, actually, like people are coming through the door to buy beer, and like here we are selling tons of cans, and it was so, it's one of those things, like you make it through it and then you're like, wow, I'm so much stronger now. I really feel that way.
Yeah, I think you and us collectively, we learned some lessons. COVID, I hope that COVID did teach a lot of people some lessons. I feel like some of the stuff is like, the brewing industry is going to move forward and continue. So it was a tough time. It's still a tough time, but yeah, I hope it grew us a bit as an industry. Anything else you see you want to answer?
I did not see anything. The spaghetti pot and the big glass bottle. I still have some of that homebrew, like big glass bottles hanging around. Yeah, I should have like a really epic homebrew sale one day.
Yeah, we could do sort of like the craftsman fair in our parking lot. Only it'll be epic.
There we go.
Sale.
Or we should do like a National Homebrew Day. Like, you come and you homebrew in the parking lot, and then you just pick your favorite thing and you take it home. That'd be good.
I can see it. Well, should we ask Vicky to come in and end us?
I think, unless anyone has any last minute questions.
There are, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes,
I can hear you.
There are a couple questions in there. One of them was, would you be willing to share your written business plan that you started with?
Yeah. Somebody, if they can just send me an email at Teresa at Crooked Lane Brewing, or go on our Crooked Lane website. I get all the emails. So yeah, reach out, especially if you have questions. I don't know that I can give you the business plan because truth be told, I don't think our business plan is quite correct. But I'd love to enlighten you with what is correct. So yeah, awesome.
Thank you. There's a couple more in there, but at any given time, we can answer them offline, and this will be available right after we go. We end the broadcast, and it'll be available to look at again. There's a lot of great questions, and I really want to thank Teresa and Ellen for being here. And sorry, I guess I should come on screen, huh? Hey, for being here and sharing their story. It was just an awesome story. And Ellen, we're so glad you're there. And, you know, here in Cali, we love our Crooked Lane. So with that, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Thank you very much for everything. And there's Melissa. Say hi.
Thank you, Melissa. This is an awesome event. And thank you, Vicki, for all that you've done to put this together.
And we'll be up.
Absolutely.
We'll be up in a couple of weeks. This is for sure.
All right, see you then.
Take care.
Okay, take care, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end in 3, 2, 1.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Dude,